I'm pleased to be joined on this week's show, two gentlemen who were with us last year talking about Earth Day. First, from Future City Incorporated, Mr. Mark Loca is with the Army Corps of Engineering. Mark, welcome back.
Thank you.
And John Dobashevitz from Future City Incorporated. John, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
And another Earth Day event in our city is one that Future City naturally is planned today. And Mark from the Army Corps of Engineers, a project manager, you're going to talk about your agency's participation a little bit.
Yes, sir.
We also have, John, you're with Future City and also at Kean University.
That's correct.
You're still there?
I am still there.
Okay. Tell us about Future City, John, and Earth Day 2007.
As you know, Earth Day has been going on for the past 35 years across the country, celebrated in a variety of formats. For the past 5 years, Future City, with a variety of partners, has put together an awareness program, especially about the estuary and water quality and all of those related issues. So the real focus of the day, while Future City puts in a tremendous amount of work organizing, the event is about the partners. And that's what we'll talk about mostly today. But key aspects of the partnership are government officials like yourself at all levels, local, regional, and nationally, to make something like this happen, as well as environmental advocacy groups and nonprofits like Future City, and obviously academics, and from kindergarten up to what we call 16, or undergraduate education and graduate education.
Mark, tell us a little bit about the Army Corps of Engineers and this partnership that John was just talking about.
Sure. John mentioned government at all levels. He also talked about the estuary and water resources, and the Corps of Engineers. That's our main focus in this region. As you may know, the Corps is responsible for maintaining the navigation channels in the harbor, ongoing dredging operations that we have for both maintenance, that means the old channels that are there, we clean them out every once in a while, and the new work, dredging the harbor down to 50 feet, which is our current project. We also are involved in ecosystem restoration projects and do work in flood control and storm damage protection.
And the 50 feet, I hear they're already making vessels that are going to need a 55-foot
Yeah,
draft.
yeah, that's
Amazing,
yeah. And they're going to widen the Panama Canal. And
I know that's a whole other argument for a whole other day. But this area fought for a long time to get 50-foot channels.
Yeah.
And now they're building vessels that need a 55-foot draft.
That is correct. That is correct. And there are those who think that we should go to 55 feet, but that's, as you said, a discussion for another day.
All right. Mark, what do you have planned for Friday, April 20th, from the Army Corps standpoint of view?
Sure. Our, as John said, for numerous years now, each year we like to add something new, but we have a pretty good agenda. Displays, we're going to be at the Elizabeth Marina and have dockside displays from all the agencies, several agencies. The Coast Guard will talk about oil spills and safety on the water. New Jersey Baykeeper is going to talk about oysters and other habitat for various shellfish. The Corps is going to have its displays on ecosystem restoration, and we're also going to have our vessel out there. I believe it's going to be the Hocking, which will take school groups on tours around the harbor out in the Arthur Kill.
Is that the same one as last year?
I believe it's the same one.
We didn't get out last year because of the weather, though, right? Or was that
that might have been. Was that Estuary Day?
Well, that was Estuary Day.
Yes, we've been doing this a couple of times. I think we were out last year on Earth Day.
But Estuary Day, we were
stormed out, correct? We're going to go out this time. I think our weather will be okay. All of this should blow through that we've had in the past couple of days.
John, tell us about the Elizabeth River Arthur Kill Watershed Association and their role in this event.
The association is recognized by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to help better understand water quality in this area and land use management. So it allows us as an agency to solicit funding through the government and other sources to help projects like this. And the real value comes from managing a variety of projects that all fall under the heading of clean water. And these include things like storm drain marking, which you see on storm drains across the city, a variety of brochures and educational pamphlets in many languages to help residents understand that their everyday activities can have an impact on water quality.
Now, John, one of the things that's important is the students participating in Friday's event. And what do you expect from the students? And do they talk to you afterwards, the experience, or what do you see there?
We have a pretty rigorous curricular tie and agenda, so that there are a number of objectives that the students will receive, starting at simple concepts like to identify an estuary, build a food chain, and start to understand the basics of the science of what's going on.
For our viewers, identify an estuary.
Sure, an estuary is a place where fresh water meets some salty water body. And in the case of the Elizabeth River, it eventually ends up by Matano Park in the Arthur Kill, which is connected then to the Newark Bay system and to the larger Raritan Bay and Hudson system that eventually leads to the Atlantic Ocean. So we have a very broad perspective on education across interdisciplinary science. So besides visually seeing the harbor and learning about the engineering that takes place there, there's a lot of biology that the students get from this activity, chemistry, physics, and earth science.
And these kids are only up to 16 years of age.
Well, there'll be a variety of middle school and high schools.
But you also lecture on this at Kean University. It's part of your coursework.
This is
right?
what I do full time. I'm in the
what you
Department
do.
of Geology and Meteorology. And an important aspect of the project as well is to understand water in all facets. And today, obviously being a flood day, I'll take a moment, if you don't mind, to tell a little bit about today's flooding. In the Elizabeth River, the flooding in the river reached 3,000 cubic feet per second. I don't want to bog people down with numbers, but just to put that in perspective, the normal flow in the river is something like 20 cubic feet per second.
And it was at 3,000.
It was at 3,000. Now, it certainly didn't go over the channelized section, but if you put that in perspective historically, we generally didn't reach 3,000 prior to the 60s. So we've had a lot more of these higher events, and it's something that we also need to be concerned with too, that we know that human impact changes water quality, and we spent a lot of time discussing that, but equally important is the water quantity aspect. And while the city is well armored, we do have to be very conscious that there are smaller changes taking place upstream through development that are probably changing our flooding regimes, so that the data that happened in the 50s, we have to start to look at very carefully.
Well, Mark, diverging from this a little bit,
absolutely.
I don't know, are you aware, you weren't even thought of when the Army Corps of Engineers, you're so young, actually
Yes.
came in here back in the 50s and the 60s.
I saw the flood control. We had, I think it was one of our Estuary Earth Day days over at the library, I believe. And I saw the flood works that had been built back then. And John and I were discussing this, how back in the day, those were probably adequate. But since then, because 5 or 10 miles upstream, you had more farmland, more open space. Since that time, there's been development, there's been human impact, there's been fill, and all of that sort of comes together when you do have a big storm event like now, and tends to overwhelm what was adequate at one time may not be adequate in the future.